Hey everyone, here today with Paul Gewuerz. He runs a company called LocalPod, which is at localpod.co, which he helps do podcasts for local media companies. So this is a really interesting business that he's doing. I'm stoked to dig in. I only know very little about it, so I'll be learning right along with you guys. But stoked to have you here. Thanks for coming on, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, TJ. And we had a great initial talk last week. I think we
Yeah,
hit a lot of topics, so I'm sure some of
we
that will come back up here.
exactly. We got a lot of high end stuff, the overviews, and now I'm excited to get into the weeds. So this
Yeah,
this will be good.
yeah, totally.
Okay, why don't you just kind of explain a little bit about your background, how you got in the local space, a little bit more about the podcast angle that you're doing. Just kind of give everyone an overview of what you've been doing the last few years.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go back kind of how I got into the whole space. I was actually in a completely unrelated industry in like my 20s. I actually worked for a beer distributor in Denver for a long time, working with concessions venues, Red Rocks Amphitheater, Mile High Stadium, all that stuff. And I just didn't dig the corporate life. It was draining working at a large organization. I started looking for ways to freelance. And I think I came across a podcast or something of somebody doing voiceover. And I was like, oh, people have told me I have a good voice. That'll be super easy. So I actually got into audiobook narrating. So I narrated, I left my corporate job and I did that for a couple years, narrated like 50 audiobooks for other authors. Um, the freelance side of things took its toll on me. It's like a feast or famine. I either had nothing coming in or too much work to get done. So I was looking for something. I had built up this kind of audio toolkit, and I'm an avid podcast and audiobook listener. So I was like, oh, podcasts, they're recurring. That's what I can do. I can, create these podcasts for other people. And so I kind of got into that. I was working with mostly, for lack of a better term, I hate this term, influencers, but people with large audiences because they weren't really influencer types, the folks I was working with, helping them, transition to get people off of social media and everything. Did that for a few years. They were, they're very interesting. A lot of the people I worked with, but it just wasn't my bag really. And then I got some outreach from a local media company up in the Seattle area, and they wanted to put a podcast out, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So I was basically editing the audio, pushing it out to the apps for them and everything. And I just kind of got more interested in the space and kind of started going after that kind of target clientele, local media companies. And yeah, I've basically been doing that for 3 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. I forget, time flies. So initially I was just doing audio editing. Their reporters would, record a story or they'd have an interview. We were also we would have a voice actor in my network narrate their stories for them, and we'd put that out. So basically, it's turning their written content into audio. We did that for a while, and then ChatGPT happened, and AI was everywhere. So I digging around like any good entrepreneur, seeing what tools are out there. I discovered text to speech (TTS) AI models, which I'm sure most people know of. 11 Labs is like the really big one that everybody's heard of, but there's a lot of them. Where basically you can upload a script and it converts it into spoken word like text audio, and it's not perfect, but so we started doing that. We're like, hey, we'll take your written content, we'll transcribe to this TTS model, quality check it, and put it out into a podcast, and it's kind of a hit. So I've been doing that for a few years. That's basically what we do. We convert written content into audio, push it out to apps, and then help grow and monetize that for legacy local media and also newer, like newsletter first, newer digital first outlets. There's a whole big group called Lion Publishers, this local independent online news. I think they have 400 or 500 members. So I work with some of them, and legacy newspapers who are making the transition to digital slowly, slower than I'd like them to sometimes. But yeah, that's kind of what we do. We reformat the content that local media is already putting out, help them monetize it, and add a new channel for reach and monetization. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. This is a very interesting niche on the local side that I hadn't really heard of until I met you. So I love finding out about this kind of stuff, and it's really cool. So tell me more about like the specifics of these podcasts that you're doing, because I know there's obviously a million different types of podcasts and everything, but when I think of a general podcast, it's kind of something like this, like a couple people talking, maybe one guy just kind of, telling a story, whatever. What are these podcasts in the local space? I know you already mentioned AI, so maybe if you want to get into what you're doing there, are these short? Are they long? Is it like Notebook LM with two people talking? Is it one? Like maybe give a little more specifics of what is some of the output that you create? What is it like, just so that we have an understanding of that?
Yeah, for sure. And it kind of varies from publisher to publisher. But so when you kind of zoom out a bit on podcasting, my wife and I always say, this is kind of like the metaphor I like to use. Think of pizza. Yeah, the pizza. You think of like it's like a type of food, but I'm like, it's kind of a genre. You can have a artisan wood-fired pizza. You can get Little Caesars. You can get a frozen French bread pizza. It's a lot of different things. It means different things to different people. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I view podcasts on the macro level. People tend to have a different idea in their head when they think of a podcast. There's the interview style, you and me right now. There's true crime is a huge genre, There's little 3-minute blurbs of people doing like mindfulness stuff. It can be a lot of things. So generally what we do is it's basically the standard format would be like we'll have a custom intro to the podcast with music explaining what the podcast is and everything. And then we'll do either the publisher will give us a script like of kind of a roundup of their stories, or we'll take 2 or 3 of their top trending stories from the last few days. We reformat that for audio. There's some technicalities where some stuff isn't great to listen to. And so it'll be like the intro. We'll have one story or a version of it just narrated. Like, that's why this stuff is useful, because it's already in people's daily routines. We're building a habit. And, the main street is closed. The city council did this. And then we'll hit an ad break there after one story. Typically, it'll be 3 stories. We'll do one. Second one, another ad break. Third one, I like to do like local events and happenings, kind of that third section in there. And that's kind of the core product that we like to put out once to 3 for larger publishers 5 or 6 times a week. Because you get that habit built in. People are listening, they want to know what's happening and everything. And from there, it's all about habit. And kind of once you get that built up of that listening muscle of finding out what's going on and everything, that's when you can kind of start dropping in other things. All that publishers do, they'll work on a long form investigative piece, or they'll get an interview with the mayor or something. And we'll do that it'll be like 2 people. We can drop it into the same feed and everything. We're actually even, I'm doing a speech later this month, even branching into branding content. Also, it's another kind of monetization channel where,
Explain that.
The barbecue place down the street, they want to get exposure in the podcast. So you interview a couple of the servers, the founder, get the story of the company, tell the human story of this business. And it's super high value because it's like, oh, I drive by that place all the time. I had no idea that this guy took this big risk and started the business, and those ribs sound amazing or whatever. And you kind of drop it into that feed. Also, that's another thing we do. But the core product is just that kind of news. I call it like a news blast, like a news update. It kind of similar to like a local newsletter, We just get your top stories. You get the habit. They're not more than like 12 to 15 minutes long. Like 8 to 10 minutes is kind of the sweet spot. So it's not taking up a ton of the time, but it fits into your commute, fits into your exercise, walking the dog or whatever, and keeps you connected, when you're not on your screen. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think this is really interesting. One of the things I've been diving into the most lately, and anybody watching this probably knows because I've been talking about it here and on Twitter, is doing video content, which of course is also audio, on social media, and kind of really almost exactly what you're saying, except this would, no AI, right? Generally.
Right.
Which is like, okay, I'm actually might make one right when we're done here, right? There's a new taco place opening on Thursday, right? So like, jump on, make a 30-second video being like, hey, I don't know if you knew this new taco place is going to open. It's the first one ever with the drive-through. It's going to be right here, pictures in the background of it. Are you guys excited about this? Let me know, blah, 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 that kind of thing, right? And a lot of people in this space are starting to get excited about this concept because there's a guy, Jacob, doing this really well. A few other people are pushing this as well, and it's really working. And so it sounds like what you're doing is not exactly the same, but we could think about it as relatively similar, just pushing it out on another channel, an audio only channel for podcasts. Would you agree? I know, again, they're not the same, but they're in kind of a similar realm, right? Of like giving that local newsletter information, but in audio format and just different channels, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what it is. The goal is to the goal is how do I say that? So I guess when I think about that, like the taco place opening, and we're doing stuff like that with audio, it's. I think a lot of people have been scared of this space, like the local space, for a long time, in like the entrepreneurial space, because you're like, oh, there's no scale there, but it's like such high engagement. You're going to be so interested in that taco place you've been seeing going up down there for a long time. So yeah, it's just a way, and the audio thing, everything is so like video these days, and it's super valuable. It is, everybody's on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, and everything. Is a lot of pushback I get from publishers sometimes is, can we really reach that many people with podcasts? And my thing I always say is like, go like walk to the gym or just walk down the street in your town, in your city, count how many AirPods you see in people's ears, how many Bluetooth headphones are on there. So it's just like, yeah, I feel like I'm rambling. I kind of lost the train there.
No, I see your point. It's
yeah,
because that is like kind of the concern, right? I would imagine you just said it, right? Which is, okay, I get the value in terms, like, I could see how much this makes sense, but how many people in the community, because we're already, if we're talking local, we're already limited in our TAM just by your location, right? Nobody's going to listen to anything in Texas, Vail, and Florida, right? Like, or whatever, right? So you're already limited massively there. So then the question is, of the people in your community, how many actually would be up for listening to a podcast, a short podcast about what's happening in their local area? I actually think it probably is a decent number of people, except for the one big problem, which I actually would love your take on, is the growth side, right? Is how do they know it exists, right? Like, because everybody talks about podcasts are the hardest thing to grow. They say that on My First Million like all the time, right? Like,
it is
the hardest thing to grow is podcasts. So yeah, tell me about, you said you do growth for these publishers, right? That's part of what you're doing. So what does that mean? What are you doing?
So first, of course, like, put it out on all your digital platforms. Obviously, they already have. A lot of the publishers I work with are established. It's like the newspaper that's been open for 100 years. They have a website. They have traffic. I'm like, put it on there. Newsletters, of course. Newsletter and podcast audiences super overlap. I don't have data in this. I've just seen it. Like, the people I work with big newsletters they put out once or twice a day or whatever, generally tend to get a lot of traction right from the beginning. I think it's because it's kind of a similar format. It's an owned media asset, and just people that are going to read a local newsletter are likely to listen also. I once again, I don't have data behind that or the reasons why.
Yeah.
This is what I've seen. And social media, I don't do a lot of work with social media, but I work with the publishers that I work with to, get it out into all channels, put it out and repeat it. The big one we do, and it's kind of the secret sauce with local audio in particular, is the platform I use is called AudioGo. I believe there's a couple other ones, and it's basically a digital advertising platform just for audio. So what we'll do is we'll make a 30-second ad, and we produce these also for the publishers. Like a highly produced ad with a voice actor, music, describing what the podcast is, why it's valuable to you. I usually come right out of the gate with something super relevant. Like here in the peak to peak region is one I just did, because it's the region right here. So it grabs you right from the beginning. The beauty of this is it goes, this platform AudioGo, you put the ad up and it inserts it in the top podcast networks and Pandora music apps also. So it advertises in these spaces where people are already listening, but there's geo-targeting in it. So I can go in, I'm like, anybody listening to this true crime podcast or Pandora in these zip codes is going to get served this. So we're reaching out to those power audio users already. The best way to grow a podcast is through other podcasts, any podcast. But that's kind of the secret sauce with local in particular, is you can geo-target it get it in Pandora, get it in not Joe Rogan, he does his own, but all the big podcasts and everything. So you can grab a surprisingly large amount of people in your space, and we've seen a lot of success with that. We just kind of just started it, and I'm like, oh man, I need to lean more into this. So I'm kind of adding that into the packages we're offering now, just like right up front, because it's working pretty well.
Wow,
That's the number one. Yeah.
I didn't even know that existed, and yet it actually makes perfect sense, right? Basically, you're doing audio version of meta ads, right? Because that's what we do for our local newsletters, right? Meta ads, you target the people in the area, and they're hyper engaged because they live there. Of course, they're interested, and so same thing. But in this case, it's they are like, because one of the hard parts, I think, what you just this model you just said solves it is you can get in front of local people. Like if you ran, say, meta ads saying, hey, the local podcast. Well, of the people in that local area seeing that ad, how many of them actually listen to podcasts at all?
Yep.
Right? It's probably, again, somewhat low. But you're solving that problem this way.
Yeah, for my particular niche for local audio, it's far outperforms social or anything like that, because most of the podcasts I listen to that I've accumulated in my feed over the years come from either ads or people being on other podcasts. It's always like, oh, this guy's really interesting, I'm going to listen to that. Oh, that's super cool. And then they stay in there. So yeah, you're serving it to the people. It's kind of a little, it was kind of a little eureka moment when I figured it out. I'm like, oh man, this is perfect for local. Yeah. By zip code, by region, we'll zoom out to like 50 square mile radius. And even outside of, if it's a hyper local publication, even outside of that, you're still, even you hear one from the town over, you're like, oh really? That's cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, this is really cool. I'm definitely gonna look into that. So it's like a way to explain it more simply is like the programmatic ads that work on websites, right? Where you're not having to go to all of these podcasts to get it on. It's like an aggregator, right? So you go to one that has deals with all these podcasts, and then yours gets played on there. It's almost like in the Super Bowl or even just on TV, right? Like there are sections meant only for local ads, right? I always remember the one when Will Ferrell did like a really goofy beer ad, but it only aired in like Kansas City during the Super Bowl or something like that. Anyway.
If you're a Pandora or a podcast listener, you'll notice these after you listen to me. You'll be listening to your podcast or whatever, and then it'll be a lot of times you hear something from like a state organization, like, hey, or Colorado homeowners, this event's going on, like, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's just targeted to your like neighborhood basically, or your state or whatever. So that's kind of our secret sauce on growth. And
learned something new. I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's great, man. Well, tell me, we talked a little bit about this, but I would like to dig in and learn a lot more from you because you're working with these people. So I have a lot of assumptions, which I know probably a lot of it is wrong, but about how the legacy local media works, how they think, what kind of things that they're doing, because many people, and I'm one of the spearheads here, talks a lot about how they're just so far behind and they're doing things in a way that isn't what people in 2025, how they want to, what type of content, how they want to accept the content. Again, I'm sure I'm kind of right, but probably kind of wrong in other ways too. But give me your thoughts just overall on, well, you know what? Maybe before we talk about the local publishers themselves, let's talk just about the market, right?
Yeah.
Like we were talking before about a lot of people think it died, when Google came in, which is, again, kind of true, kind of not. Tell me your thoughts about the opportunity in 2025 and beyond, just in local media in general, since you know a lot about it, since you work with so many people on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, there's a buzz around it right now. You and I talked about that. If you're listening to podcasts like My First Million, or there's others out there also. So it's kind of got a little buzz right now, but it's been kind of burning in the background for a while. I had a guy on my podcast a year ago or so. He runs a nonprofit called Rebuild Local News. They're basically a lobbying organization in Washington. And the way he put it is, Google and Meta came in and it was like a forest fire in the ecosystem. And everybody thinks it's just decimated. But if you look, there's a lot of green sprouts everywhere. You know what I mean? It's just going to take some time to grow it back. Like I think I said earlier, the interest, if you look at Google Trends over the last 20 years or whatever, since Internet 1.0, 20, 30 years, the interest for local information has never waned. It's just been, in a crazy reorganization that's going to look interesting a couple decades from now, I think. And I'll kind of talk about the local publishers also. A lot of local media orgs I talk to have done really well. A lot, they've kept up with the updates, and they're still profitable, good businesses. Where a lot of them fell behind early on was like, hey, here's the internet. Let's put a PDF of our newspaper and spend $10,000 working on a little thing so they can swipe the page. And it's just like, it was not useful. And it has been very slow to catch up in a lot of places. I've talked to a lot of folks on my podcast who are kind of digital first, maybe starting in the last 5-10 years. And I mean, they're doing great. They have large teams. They've grown it. The opportunity is there. And, as a business, the local businesses want to get the word out. They probably default to Google or Facebook or whatever. But if you can make a compelling argument and you have eyeballs or ears, whatever the case may be, they will give you money. I had a guy on my show. He's a friend of mine, Kenny Katzgrau, in Red Bank, New Jersey. He runs an agency that works doing like advertising for local media companies, and he also is a publisher. And he is a great case study. He was actually subpoenaed by Meta in a lawsuit against the Justice Department because he wrote a piece of like basically arguing how local media can still win and has this growth edge against social media. So they literally like, oh, look at this. This guy has a point. And they subpoenaed him. He has it hanging up on a plaque behind him in his office. But there's a lot of, I can't think of all of them off the top of my head. There's a lot of great examples. Once again, if you look at that Lion Publishers, it's capital Lion Publishers. It's an organization of 400 or 500 publishers in the U.S. that are digital first, like new startups, and like it's a big ecosystem. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, no.
The interest is there for the ad dollars. You just have to execute and provide high value stuff that's useful to people. Is the thing.
Yeah, I think just stepping back, it's not that people didn't care about their local, what's going on around them. It's just how that information is being delivered, how Google kind of came in, and then especially as you said, even Facebook, and people getting news from their friends, and then which was kind of okay, but not really. And then all of a sudden Facebook groups, I imagine when they first started, pretty high quality, and of course have gone down in quality, constantly. Oh, this guy cut me off in traffic. And so it's not that people don't want the information. It's just there hasn't been a really great way to get it in a lot of locations that don't have a really good local media company. So and not only has the attention not necessarily waned, people have always been interested in this. Of course, I'm big on this idea that they're going to care a lot more in the near future because of AI, right? When you can't trust anything on the internet, you're only going to trust things and people that and most of those will be people that you'll be able to know in person to know that they're real. So local is going to get significantly bigger as the wave of AI grows. The wave of local will grow. So in a way, by being in local media, you're riding the AI wave. That's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, definitely. That comes up basically every episode now of my podcast, where it's mostly publishers or people in the space. And I'm like, I'm sorry I ask this every episode, but we got to talk about AI. And there are thoughtful ways that they're doing it. One huge thing I've seen for newsrooms, traditional newsrooms, is like city council meetings. You used to have to send somebody there, take notes for 3 hours, sift through all of it. I mean, you can go set a phone up to record in there now, or record the Zoom version, and there's specific AI companies now that will, like 4 publishers, it'll go through and summarize everything and all the stuff that was agreed on and how the votes went and all that stuff. That's a big one. But yeah, that's totally true. Riding the AI wave, because one of the biggest drags on legacy local media orgs is just the amount of time it takes to do everything. And these tools, I think it's gonna. I see it's. It's just. I think a lot of local media orgs are going to swing back. I think Google and Meta might be, not happy about what's going to happen, because if you can do something super lean that used to take a team of 8 people to report on, and you can do it with 1 or 2. I mean, the ad dollars are the same. You know what I mean? It's just, it's all being put together right now in real time. It's just mishmash being put together. It's too much to keep up with, as I'm sure you're aware. I hear about something new like every day. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean it's so hard to keep with everything. Obviously, we all know that, but yeah, just thinking about when you go back, 20 years or even 10 years, like why did a lot of the mainstream local media companies, go out of business or struggle so much? It's just because the costs were so high because of the things you said. Well, it wasn't because people didn't want it. It was just the costs were too high for the limited TAM that you could get from advertisers. Well, if your costs drop 75% because now you can have one person do what 4 had to do before, well, now you're back to significant profitability, right? And I think
Yep.
that's where people like me, people watching this probably are coming in like, okay, well, those companies aren't just going to be brought back from the dead, most likely. It's going to
Yep.
be new people, new businesses, new entrepreneurs coming into their town and saying, hey, I can replace that old model that made, 300,000 a year, 500,000 a year, and I can do it with one person, me and
Yeah.
one employee.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I just had something. I might have lost it.
It was just
Yeah.
like I said, it was too good, right? Too good.
Yeah. It was too good. You blew me away there. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, tell me more about honestly, I want to hear the good and the bad, but like, how are local publishers, like the legacy publishers, how are they managing now? What are they doing well? What are they not doing well? I mean, I imagine the ones that are working with you are probably more on the ball if they're hiring a guy to do podcasts and leveraging AI. They're probably more on the ball. But just in general, what do you think about publishers and their willingness to adapt, their ability to do it even if they want to? Sometimes, it doesn't matter what they want. If their team is too big and bloated, it's too difficult, that whole thing. But what do you think? Give me your insights on the legacy player space right now.
Yeah. So I sit in this funny kind of space. I think sometimes I work with a lot of legacy newspapers and stuff like that. And then I'm also in like the world on your side where I'm like, oh, let's go lean and digital. And, you probably listen to My First Million or whatever. And just so a lot of people are coming into the space because of this buzz around it. And so I'll start with the things that a lot of people coming in are doing wrong. It sounds so easy. Like I started this local newsletter, now making 300K a year because, there are those stories out there. What the legacy publishers are doing right is a lot of the people I talk to, the reporters, the editors, they're very mission driven people. They're not business minded people. They're about like getting the information out there, creating good journalism. So a lot of people coming into the space just see a business opportunity and don't realize the effort that goes into that. They're like, oh, I can just, curate all this stuff from other newspapers and that will call it a day or whatever. Whereas the kind of existing framework that the legacy players have on like how to create that reporting and report on things is generally at a higher level than people just coming in. I think people overestimate how easy it'll be to just start one up and do it. You know what I mean? So the actual reporting, the journalism, and the quality content is generally pretty high. I'd say they're doing that well. In terms of keeping up with AI, digital newsletters, podcasts, all that, that's like, it's a toss up. It's people, you know what I mean? I know people my parents' age that are like day trading and, in super fluent on like an iPhone or something. And some of them like cannot text me a simple question or something like that. So it varies a lot on that side. A lot of them have done really well and they're really forward thinking. And another issue with legacy media, and you'll hear about this if you listen to podcasts in the space, is traditionally there was always the business side and the editorial side, and there was like a hard divide between them. So there's people that just salespeople and people that are just thinking about business, but a lot of them they're only interested in the reporting and the journalism stuff and everything. So that's where a lot of them have struggled, is like in this era, you have to be both of those things. You have to be business minded and understand how a business operates and your costs, your margins, all that, and be able to put out quality journalism that serves your audience. You know what I mean? Does that kind of answer that?
Yeah, it does.
That's what they do a lot better generally. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is actually kind of true somewhat, as I think about it, in a lot of smaller businesses, but that people who, it sounds like what you're saying is a lot of these legacy media companies, it's not that, yes, they're a business, they know, they need to make money, but they're very much passion oriented, and also very much just like, this is how it's always been done. That which is, I think, is common in a lot of businesses, right?
Yes.
Where the new way, like adapting, can be so much more profitable, or making the business more functional, more operate better, and they just won't get there, at least not fast enough, because again, it's inertia, right? People just do what they've always done. They're like, nope, this is a passion project, I do it, I'm not going to sacrifice the way I do this, I won't hire somebody if they're not this, that, whatever it is. They want to keep on the journalism majors who need to make 90,000 a year, where the competitor is paying someone in the Philippines 15,000 a year. There's just it can be a struggle for them to adapt in a way that these these new style My First Million style entrepreneurs coming in and saying, how can I optimize this as best as I can? And to your point, maybe they're not trained journalists, right? They're maybe quality isn't technically as good, but does it make up for the fact that they can make 4x as much money because their costs are 4x less? I mean,
yes, yeah, and I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. Yeah. You need to be coming in with that new mindset, and you need to report the good stuff. I've seen some local newsletters that are great, but it's like it's just good news. It's like, oh, this is happening, this restaurant's opening, this festival's going on. It's like, but there's still a place for. I didn't realize this before I started working with a lot of publishers and getting deeper in. It's really important, like for a society too. Like if there's shenanigans going on at City Hall and like embezzling is happening, like that should get out there. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, that's the danger of these legacy newspapers going out of business, is crazy corruption on the local level and stuff. So it's really important. And I just remembered the piece that I forgot before. I wanted to touch on it real quick.
Go ahead.
When you kind of talked about newspapers and stuff falling behind 20 years ago, what really happened is they had a short window in time, newspapers, where they were just wildly profitable. They had this cash cow called classifieds. And then what happened is the dawn of the internet, Craigslist came along and just decimated it, like basically overnight. And so that's kind of what happened is, they had this cash cow. And then the metaphor I use for that one is the music industry. In the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, these rock stars had like private jumbo jets, like 747s, because it was this brief window in time where they owned the distribution and they just made crazy amounts of money. Then Napster came along, and now it's like, oh, and now it's been long enough where if you're a musician, you can make an awesome living now. You're not going to make $70 million like the Rolling Stones, but if you're good enough on social media and understand how it works and Spotify and everything, you can make a living out of it. So that's kind of what needs to happen with local media, is they need to. This kind of goes back to what you were asking me about the opportunity in the space earlier. Is that the way forward is there. The models are there, as a recent guest on my podcast said. The models are there. We just need execution on them. And my take on it is everything's still being figured out in real time. There's people doing well. There's people not doing as well. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. It came back into my brain after you blew me away before. So yeah.
Totally. I mean, execution. Yeah. And the thing that, one of the biggest things that, there's so many angles to this, local media idea, right? Again, you're just introducing a new one, right? A podcast and there's so many angles to it. But I think what most people that are listening to this, why it's called local newsletters, like that's the easier place to start. And I think, so many of these players, you mentioned it before, which I'm still just so fascinated by, is their digital newsletter, or electronic newsletter, as they sometimes call it, these old school terms.
Right.
And they still are what you said of like, it's a PDF. So they take their current information, probably a physical thing, turn it into a PDF that you have to like, go like this on, which of course in theory looks okay on a computer, but of course most people are looking at this stuff on their 80% looking on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a widescreen PDF like on your phone. Like it's bizarre. And so the reason I bring this up is just two of the competitors, some of the ones that I've launched recently, I of course do market research, and the two like in each town, the biggest ones that I've found, they both still do this. Like they send a newsletter, and actually they just send a link, and it's like, oh, here's our digital paper, and you have to click on it and zoom in and do all this stuff, and it's just like these are definitely companies making, I think, I'm guessing, but mid to high six figures, if not seven figures, and their product, at least on the email, on the newsletter side, is significantly worse than what a solopreneur can do, by themselves. Now, again, the content itself, whatever, but that is not a way people want to consume their content. I mean,
No.
I think, I don't know. Do you think am I right about that?
No, that's it in a nutshell. That's kind of a really
Yeah.
good example of kind of the stuff I've been talking about is, well, you and I had talked about the opportunity out there, shiny object syndrome of going to these legacy players and being like, look, this is your product. Look at this one that I produced. Let's upgrade your product you're putting out, your newsletter or whatever.
Yep.
Make it super engaging, modern, and readable on a mobile device. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think you're right on the ball with that. That really encapsulates our whole conversation, I think.
Yeah.
Is just just need to upgrade and just look at what's working for these new upstarts. And generally most of the local players I talk to are at a scale where they could do that. It's not a giant bloated corporation that's really hard to change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No,
Yeah.
no. It's,
Yeah.
50, 100 people tops or something like that. You can make those changes. It's just, once again, like I said before, I have an aversion to working in large organizations.
For this reason.
So there's some of that too, a lot of change and a lot of people that have been in there for a long time. It's like, well, this is how I've always done it. Everybody who's ever had a job knows how that goes. Like, why do we do it this way? That's how we've always done it. That's how I always mop the floor at this restaurant. I'm like, well, there's a way better way to do that.
Exactly. Well, and you can sort of understand, and I've seen this, mindset from, I come from the insurance industry, which is known as a very legacy, a lot of older people legacy. And I've talked to these people, and I understand this mindset, which is, hey, we're making assumptions here. Let's say they're making $1 million a year. The founder, publisher, whatever, is taking home $350K a year, not working that hard. And
Right.
someone like us comes in and says, hey, you need to change your model here. And he's like, do you see my lake house over here? Do you see that I work 2 hours a week or a day? And you want me to come in and do more work and spend more money to change this thing? People aren't reading it. Like, obviously they're reading it, or the advertisers wouldn't pay. So I'm not worried about it. Right. And well, of course, I don't think that's the right mentality. I can at least understand it to a degree, because you are asking somebody to spend money and effort, when they're doing well. Right. And this is the real basis of why many companies don't innovate, right? Is because, back to the Blockbuster thing, Blockbuster Necklace. I mean, they were making billions of dollars a year, and someone comes in and says, completely change your model here. It's like, screw you, we're making billions of dollars. Like, why are we going to spend money to change what's making billions of dollars? So I get it, but I still think this is going to come at them fast, as we talked about. And again, shiny object, of course. If you listen to My First Million or Chris Kerner or any of these people, you probably have shiny object ADHD as well. But that obviously is a massive opportunity. Is, I honestly, if anybody wants to do this, please reach out to me. I'm curious if this is something you're willing to pursue. I might be willing to help. Which is, instead of starting a local newsletter, like, just go help others that already have significant revenue, right? If you're starting from zero, you're trying to get to, 10 grand a month. Well, what if you went to a carrier that's making 100 grand a month and asked them for only 10% of it to fix their business, right? It's probably a lot easier sale. It's going to be much faster than trying to start something from zero. So anyway, it's interesting. I don't have time to focus on that right now, but it is definitely a big opportunity.
It's and once again, I think a lot of people maybe newer to the space don't realize how big it is and how varied it is by geography, by local culture or whatever. It's just every publisher I talk to is different, and it's just a human organization thing. It's hard, it's hard to change that momentum once it's started, if it's still working, At some
Yeah,
point, the pain becomes too bad, and they're
that's right.
like, "Okay, we're gonna literally go bankrupt," and then sometimes it's too late by that point. But
Possibly. Hopefully you get in front
there's
of
a
it.
lot of people out there, yeah, at legacy players too that are to be fair to them that are thinking about this and are taking action on it. But there's a lot that aren't. So there's a lot of
Yeah,
that's back to the opportunity thing. That's where a lot of
yeah.
this opportunity lies. Yeah.
Well, this is interesting to think. I as far as the opportunity side, I think you just brought up a point that I think about a lot, but I don't know if I've really expressed this. And again, if I'm wrong, let me know. But what makes this opportunity so great is the the literal nature of the beast, which it is extremely fractured because it has to be, right? Because of
Mm-hmm.
location, right?
Yeah.
Like
Exactly. Yeah.
every location has to be a different business. You cannot
Yep.
have a New Jersey paper that anybody in Texas is going to read. It's impossible, except for this, 7 people who read it because they used to live there. Whatever. Like,
Right.
so every single location is its own market, right? Where if you're building an AI app or whatever. I mean, I guess the comparable, of course, is local, like physical businesses, of course, like the nail
Mm-hmm.
salon or the,
Yeah.
the pool cleaning company. But like you think of so many opportunities, say for a My First Million, type of mindset where your opportunity is the whole country or it's the whole world if it's digital and
Yeah.
well, which is great for the opportunity size, but it's also terrible for competition, right? Because if you can do it, why can't anybody else in the world like do the same thing as you, right? Where if you're doing it in your location, there's only, let's say you're in a town of 250,000, like that's it. Well, I guess there are some people like us doing it in other places, but um, it's just the fact that every market is different allows so much more opportunity than someone to come in and scale it. Because I think maybe we can talk about this a little bit of 6 a.m. city or trying to scale these things in different towns and how the difference of, doing that from AI only, which of course most of us don't think will work, or having like a paid, editor in the town versus an entrepreneur where that is its own business, where they live there and that this is their business versus a national brand that has a local editor. And how I think the entrepreneur side, the local business owner side can be so much more successful than just a local editor that is hired. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of those pool companies make $1 million a year, in a town
Yeah, yeah,
somewhere.
just in their town.
So yeah,
Yeah, on a scale.
if your aspirations aren't to be a billionaire or something, you can have a very nice life and a very comfortable living locally, doing that local stuff. And I think to do quality, like the journalism side of it, I think you have to kind of be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
My business, for example, when I first kind of got the idea of it with this AI stuff, my initial idea was to launch them like a network. I was like, I'll just launch, I can make these quick. I can launch them in 50, 100, 200 cities and do it myself. And after kind of playing around with that a little bit, I'm like, I cannot make a quality product in all these different places. I'd need 50 more brains and like know what's going on in the town and everything. So that's where when you said the opportunity of going and doing it for somebody else, that's kind of what I did. I was like, well, I'll go to these publishers that are already doing the stuff and I'll help them transition into it. But yeah, I think I my thoughts are that it's always better when there's somebody on the ground there, like in the town. Like 6 a. If anybody doesn't know 6 a.m. City, they're a local newsletter company with 30 or 40 newsletters throughout throughout the U.S. And their model is they have a smart brevity style, hustle style kind of, I think, daily newsletter,
yeah, they
and
usually do.
they have an editor or writer in each city that like runs um that operation. I think I told you about a guy I know, a friend of mine named Michael Shapiro. He has a company on the East Coast called Tap Into,
Yes, I'm
and
familiar with it.
what they've done, he was a lawyer, I believe, and he left his job when his son was had some medical issues when he was little, and he wanted to be closer. His son's fine now, by the way. And he started a local like website. This was like 20 years ago, so it's kind of older style. But he started a local website slash newsletter, and and then the town next asked if they could have one, and he put one there. And what he did is he built a franchise model. So he sells the model and the back end to people in their hometowns. And, they're not profitable at the get-go, but he says usually within 6 to 8 months, they're profitable. And he has people that have 4 or 5 of them that they operate on the ground. They'll hire writers and everything. So, he's another really good, I think he has 95 something franchisees now, and mostly like Jersey, Florida, along the East Coast there, where they've kind of taken that and, so he provides the back end support, all the systems, the formatting, everything, and they just do the reporting and they do the ad sales and everything. Kind of went on a tangent there, but
no, that's super interesting. I you know him well. Can you connect us later? I'd actually love to have him on the show.
Yeah, he's a super nice guy, and he's usually open for podcasts and stuff like that. He's
awesome. He was on. I listened to him talk. I don't know what podcast he was on a year ago or something, but I listened to it. And it is, I mean, I this is something that I'm working on right now. It's like basically a different version of his model. So I'm very interested to talk to him because I'm launching something very similar. Because it is such a big opportunity, right? Because what we're talking about with the opportunity here, but most 99.9% of entrepreneurs or people don't know the technical side of doing this. They don't understand newsletters. They don't understand payments. They don't understand advertising. They don't understand CMS. They don't get any of that, but they do get the opportunity and the business side and maybe even the journalism side. And so being the back end for somebody like that makes a ton of sense. So hence why I'm working on this and why I'd love to talk to him, because it's really smart.
I'll connect you for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. One other thing, tell me about, and again, this may not be your expertise, but I'm curious if you have any insights on the sales side, the selling ad side, for just local media companies in general. This is the thing, the people who are doing, who are the type of person who's probably listening to this is starting a local newsletter in their town. And, when you're just starting out, you maybe don't have a ton of connections to the business community. It can be, it's difficult to sell ads, like to get started if that's not your expertise. Yet we also hear about these local media companies that seemingly don't have bigger audiences necessarily, but they do really well. I assume a lot of that has to do with relationships. But any insights you have for somebody getting started on ways to sell to local businesses, things you see the legacy players doing?
Yeah, I mean, having a network or relationships is obviously the most valuable thing. So, network. That's, everybody in any business space will tell you that. My thoughts on it are, if you can make a compelling argument to local businesses that, you're providing value and you have an audience and everything, they will spend their money with you. The Kenny Katzgrau, the guy I talked about before in New Jersey, his kind of first big win for his company, Broad Street, was there's a butcher in town, like a butcher and sandwich shop, and they were looking to get the word out about their daily lunch specials or something. So he just made the simplest thing. He took the guy's head and it put a banner up on his website, and it literally flops open, like Terrence and Phillip from South Park, and shouts out the daily special there. And this guy got so much business from this silly little thing on his website. He's been an advertiser with him for 10 years. Kenny says he goes in there once a month, gets a sandwich and a fistful of cash. He pays in cash for his ads on the digital website. So, also thinking outside the box there, maybe repackaging things differently. I try and recommend things to my legacy players with podcast stuff. One thing with podcasts people don't think about when they first start them, if you have a newsletter, because I've worked with newsletter first companies, is even just the real estate in your newsletter is a selling point from the get-go. Because you can put a thing, listen to us here, like a banner with your image of your podcast, brought to you by whatever. You can sell that right out of the gate. So that's just on my side. Thinking outside the box and just getting on the ground, go talk to people in person, knock on doors, man. You know what I mean? And form those relationships, get out in the community. That's why it is a local business. You know what I mean? But I think if you can make a compelling argument and have a compelling product, I've seen people do it, build meaningful businesses just by knocking on doors. And, if you can bring business into their shop or whatever, they will fork over the money. it's worth it to them. So kind of basic stuff, but that's kind of how I think about it. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other angle I'm curious, I don't think we talked about this before. Tell me what you think. One of the angles that I'm pushing really hard on this is with the franchise model that I'm working on is the owners of the franchises also having another local business that they can pitch inside of their media company, as well as pitch to these businesses as they're making relationships for the local media company. And then also, by the way, did you know blank, right? So the example of this, it's kind of the simplest, but also it's going to take a little longer because we can't really pitch it to the audience because the audience is not B2B, but is digital marketing agency, right? So it's like, okay, you're talking to this person. Oh yeah, I do the local media company. Yeah, you've heard of us. Yeah, we have thousands, tens of thousands of readers. Oh, that's so cool. We should do advertising. And this has happened to me when I talk to these advertisers and I go, okay, well, give me your information. Like, show me your website. Like, where are we going to push people to? Right. And they show me the website and it's like, are you serious? Like, you're not going to get it. Nobody's going to buy from you with this website. So now it's like, okay, well, how do I fix that? Well, guess what? Pay me this and I will build you a better website. Right.
Yeah.
Or, hey, what else are you doing? Yeah, you should market in my newsletter. Okay. Or on my media company. What else are you doing for marketing? Oh, I don't really know. What do you think? Like, okay, well, let me run meta ads for you. Right. So now charge them monthly to run meta ads. So anyway, I'm curious, and that's just the example that I'm pursuing right now, but I think there's plenty of others. In my case specifically, I was an insurance agent for 20 years, 10 years, whatever. So what if you also owned an insurance agency, right? And you could talk about that, or that can be the advertising in your newsletters for the insurance agency. So I don't know. Have you heard of this before? Do you have any thoughts?
I have not heard of it, but I've had the exact thought before. Shiny object syndrome once again. And I think as the tools get better and faster, I think that business models are going to change too. So I think that's an awesome idea. There's okay, I keep talking about my podcast, but I had a guy on the show named Max Cabot. He's in Marfa, Texas, like way south. It's a town of it's tiny. It's a town of like 2,000 people. Or no, the county is like 2,000 people.
60 people or something. But it's like famous for all this weird art stuff or something.
Yeah, it's like an artsy place. What him and his wife did, there's a local newspaper there, and the people were going to retire, so him and his wife bought the print shop and the newspaper, and they took like most of the print shop. It's like this big old building on Main Street, and they turned it into a cafe/event space. So it's like the kind of town hub where they serve breakfast. You can do like your wedding there, and and this business is profitable and it funds the journalism. So they still put out like the I think it's I forget the name of the newspaper. But basically that like event space they have, that's also like a community hub, also feeds money into the newspaper and keeps the journalism going out. And it's super cool. And they've added like 10 or 11 jobs in a town of like a few hundred people through this cafe and like newspaper. So that's like an example off the top of my head. But I think, with like we said earlier, with the tools getting faster and being one person being able to execute more like journalism and stuff, why can't you start another business that like also funds this out, or like it's your own advertisement? I do this. I have a newsletter called Local News Industry Pulse, and it's a curated thing of stories from local media industry that would be interesting to my target audience. And I put that out every week, and I have super high level people on the list. And I push it out there, and occasionally I'll put stuff from LocalPod in there, and I've seen good traction through that. So it's kind of not local necessarily, but similar idea.
I mean,
yeah.
What they talk about on my first man a little bit, Matt McGarry's show, or him and other really smart people now, and Nathan May, who was just his episode should be live by the time people hear this. Definitely need to listen to that. He's one of the smartest guys in the industry of newsletters. Is what they for people with call it the morning brew hustle style newsletters, right? Those were super popular 5, 7, 8 years ago. And now it's just too saturated for those for those type of industries, tech, AI, whatever. You can't just launch those now. But even just newsletters in general, the answer is not ads only. The answer is, ads can help. You should try to sell them. You can make some money that way, but you're not going to get rich selling ads in your newsletter. The way you get rich in a newsletter is sell your own product, whether it's a course, a community, a cohort based thing, consulting, right? this is what these new creators, whatever industry they're in, that's how you'll make a lot of money from a newsletter. It's not from ads. And so I'm just taking that exact same mindset and saying, just doing it locally, right? So instead of a course or community or consulting, it's my plumbing company, my insurance agency, my digital marketing agency, AI agency. That's going to be part of it too, right? Every business is going to need help transitioning to an AI world. Well, where are they going to find those people? Well, if you're the known guy in town and you make it clear in your media company that you do that, you're probably going to get a lot of clients as people start realizing they need to do that. So anyway, that's the model that I'm fascinated with right now.
Yeah. When I first kind of had that thought as well, I was really obsessed with it for a couple days. I was thinking about it a lot. I'm like, no, stay focused here. Work on your business. I've gotten better at that over the years, but it's hard.
Yeah. Well, and that makes sense for you because that's why the other idea that also seems massive is helping the current legacy players. I just touch that because I am focused on this one that we're talking about right now. Like this is the thing for me. That's why my wife runs our local newsletters so that I can focus on this bigger stuff. So yeah, it's exciting. I'll keep you posted.
That's why we're on a that's why we're on a podcast like this. So anybody out there, like, oh man, I'm gonna take that and run with it. You know.
Exactly. Yes, and let us know if you do. So because I and then I'll have you on if you do run with this. I want to interview. Paul, this has been amazing. So it sounds like you got a couple things going on. So you've got the newsletter, which it sounds like if you listen to this, you need to be on it. Period. But what was it called?
Local News Industry Pulse. And it's like a Beehive. It's on Beehive. I can give you the link to it later for show
give me
notes.
the link. We'll put it in. Or Google what you just said. And then you have a podcast too, right? So what's that?
I have a podcast called Small Press, Big Ideas, also in the local media space, mostly with legacy folks. But there's some, like I've mentioned, I don't know how many, 3 or 4 people that have been on the show. So anybody listening might be interested in that as well. Then my company is localpod.co, at localpod.co. And then I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So feel free to connect there or DM me on LinkedIn or at Paul at localpod.co. You can shoot me an email too if anybody wants to. I'll reply. Yep.
Awesome. Well, this has been really great, Paul. Thanks so much for coming on.
This is fun. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Yeah.